Welcome back to Taz and Escape from Mars. So...
Even though we're not from Mars anymore.
Oh, okay, I thought my video glitched out. I was like, why is it all dark for a second?
It's weird. It starts the music up before the level loads. It's weird. But anyway...
Yep.
Yeah, we had...
Basically, they were experimenting with a new tone for the game. The kind of tone that only exists in games that have those weird hang-on black before transitioning into the game.
Pedro, I'm disappointed that you didn't decide to play the drill theme from Sonic Colors.
Too obvious.
Yeah, probably too obvious.
That being said, the waterfall gimmick of this particular stage is probably inspired by Labyrinth Zone. So yeah, I can definitely tell some Sonic inspirations in this game.
I mean, it like that same kind of animation and all was also present in the first Bubsy game. So I get the idea that a lot of people were actually entranced by Sonic. What were you doing?
Yeah, it was the 90s, so everyone wanted to be Sonic.
Not to mention, like, it's one of those things, to get back to what Dwebs was saying. That's the thing, Dwebs. The music in the previous game was nothing but horrible random noise. The music in this game, well, by no means brilliant. At the very least, it has a melody. I do still remember the main theme. So there's actual melodies in this game. So I'm at the very least grateful for that. But yeah, unlike with the waterfalls in Sonic, though, you can, if you insist enough, you can fight the tide. I guess
I can see that.
So even Taz is better with water than Sonic is.
That's not a huge accomplishment to do.
Also, to be fair, Sonic could also jump against the tide in Sonic 1 as well. And to be fair, as of Sonic Colors, Sonic can actually move freely through water, so technically he's got a leg up on Taz there.
Yeah, that's the only.
He still drowns in. That's the thing, Jova. It's inconsistent in Sonic Generations. If he falls in the water in Seaside Hill, he drowns. But in Sonic Lost World, in Kishimoto's games. In Kishimoto's games, he can be underwater, so it's...
Okay. Actually, Pedro, he can fall into the water in Sonic Generations when he's in a 2D perspective.
How convenient.
How convenient for the game designers.
It's like Mario swimming in 3D games. Sometimes he can breathe unlimited, sometimes he has a limited breath.
There you are, guys. Some people say that Sonic should be more consistent to this game quality like Mario, and there you go. He's consistent there.
He's inconsistent. He's consistent in his inconsistency.
Yes, they are. Sonic is just as selective in drowning or not drowning as Mario.
Well, hold on. No, like in pretty much all. Yeah, Mario can swim in all of the 3D games, except for maybe I guess.
I said about breathing. Just trying, breathing underwater.
Oh, breathing. Well,
because in the two games it doesn't drown, but in the 3D it can. So
I guess sure.
But with that, like 3D World and 3D Land being the one exceptions where you can't drown.
Anyway, back to this game. So yeah, we're still on the planet X.
That's
the thing, Joe. But they also kind of go for a Sonic stretcher where each zone has 2 ads and a boss. So they also kind of go for the Sonic stretcher. Well, if it helps the game, I'm all for it, I guess.
Sure.
I mean, considering the first game's logic was, none. I guess, yeah, might as well. If you're gonna, by all means, if ripping off somebody else's logic means you'll have logic, go ahead, I guess.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from other games.
Oh, no, it's not. It's just that, no, especially considering how this game still puts its own spin on things. Yeah, actually, it definitely feels like its own thing, not like a Sonic clone or anything.
It feels like a competent Bubsy game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Actually, I also have another question. Well, it's more tied to the history of Sega in general, because as we've seen also with the first boss that Taz faced, the Sega Genesis had this fascination of making these 3D balls technology of fluid movements. But what actually was one of the early examples of games that actually did that on the system?
Aladdin.
Because aside from Aladdin, I thought Vector, but like, didn't Vector Man came before?
No, Veteran 1 came after.
Okay.
Vector Man came out like 94, right?
Yeah, whereas Aladdin came out in 93.
Cool.
It's that's the thing too. When it comes to the 3D ball stuff, that was more so American developers doing that, whereas Japanese developers on the Mega Drive prefer to either make puzzle games, RPGs, or platformers that were entirely 2D based in terms of their visuals, not so much like the 3D effect stuff that you see in stuff like Veterman and the balls in Aladdin, or the stuff in the final stage of Reform Gym 2. That was more so the American developers that did that kind of stuff.
Okay.
All right. Oh, this is the interesting thing is that the Planet X actually is probably the longest of the stages, just because
I can see that.
just because it actually has more. However, to its credit, this stage has its own unique gimmick. So we had the waterfall just now. The gimmick in this one is using this thing. What does this thing do?
The mushroom.
It allows you to fly. Sorry. So there you go.
Has been Mary Poppins,
Think of this, since Theo brought up Waterland in the previous, Waterland 2 in the previous part, think of this as the equivalent to the Owl stages.
Yeah, again, a lot of things do remind me of Wario Land in terms
Actually, this
Yes.
reminds me of, you're familiar with Kirby 2?
Yes.
The owl, Coon.
Yeah,
Whenever
yeah.
you have the,
the companion owl. Okay.
yeah.
True, that's
Especially
another example of an Owl stage, yeah. I'm no, again, it's basically a flying upwards stage where you have to try your best to dodge stuff and blah blah blah. So again, to the game's credit, the game does do a good job in giving its own unique sub-stage its own gimmick. So you're never, so it's not like the first game where you're just, you know, constantly trying to figure out what next stupid idea the developers had in terms of cheap deaths. So
It's also
At
a good
least
thing
this
that
game looks like it has a budget.
it's also a good thing that Taz is not eating the mushroom, because I wonder how the layout of a level would change if he did that.
I don't know, Deji. The problem with the first game was not the lack of budget; it was more so a lack of, you know,
Everything.
thought put into it. Like,
This one doesn't look like it's a Flash game.
the level design, true. The background art is much better. I will give you that. But yeah, no, this game, the first game looked like it was literally slapdashed together in under a month, just because of how messy the level design was, and because all the music was just boom, 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 just random noises. Whereas this one actually feels like people actually try to create a game that actually doesn't feel like it will embarrass anyone whose name is attached to it. So
You really hated the first one.
I did.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
Not that I blame you.
As someone who's only seen it, I tried to play it. The minecart stage alone is something that should tell you that the first game is absolute trash.
Well, Jova, you yourself were not exactly kind to it in your final thoughts.
Oh
so-
yeah, like I said, not that I blame you.
No, it's because that's the thing, Joe. But this, like I said before, this is the game that I grew up with. Just this one. I never actually played the original, and I'm glad that I grew up with this one, because if I played the first one as a kid before playing this one, I probably would have never even touched this one.
I mainly just bring up your hatred for this game because, well, again,
To the previous one.
no, I do get that you hate this game, but this is definitely one of the games you hate that you talk about the most, per se.
It's because, well, that's the thing, Jova. Unlike with some of the other games I can mention, I found that game. I finally played the first Tasmania game as an adult. You know, so it became a lot more I immediately knew exactly why I was getting pissed off and how I should complain about it. So it was.
Yeah. Speaking of 3D ball rendering technology,
there you go. Well, this is
Caterpillar.
I love how much fluid they managed to replicate the movement with that. I don't know how they do it. Actually, remind me again, Pedro, doesn't this kind of thing happen also in Gunstar Heroes?
Yes.
And wasn't that also
Treasure was probably one of the select few exceptions. Yes.
Yeah, Treasure still is a Japanese developer. Is Treasure? But I actually forgot to check. Is Treasure still around?
I don't think so.
Sorta?
Treasure was kind of the Platinum Games of its time.
I think they are.
It's just only ran by one person. I think he can hire more staff if he wants to.
Oh, so it's kind of like how Mistwalker now only has like 5 employees or something.
Yeah,
and it's sadly on the verge of breaking.
Well, technically, too, there's been no news of the company being in trouble.
Okay. If I recall correctly, Sakaguchi did mention something for the wishes for the new year interview. I'll see if I can manage to check it in the meantime.
Treasure haven't released anything since 2014. At least not anything.
yeah, they got screwed over by Nicholas. Oops.
What a surprise!
By who? Sorry.
You know the guys that
very shady publisher, Wibs.
who keep making Cave Story, milking the hell out of Cave Story and the Binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
Like they made it.
Oh, never mind. Little correction, real quick. As of 2017, there's not been any news since then. Mistwalker had only 15 employees in it, so it's kind of
Man, Tusk literally killed that. But go on.
Well, that's the thing too. Maybe if the company's first ever game was not a complete piece of dog ass, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation now, would we?
But Pedro,
Well, basically, that you watch our Blue Dragon commentary if you want information.
I've seen enough.
So
that was the beginning. Here's where all it started.
basically,
I saw that anime when it aired on TV.
Also
the
called,
anime.
that anime is so horrible.
Anyway,
But anyway,
I found it. There you go. Message from Yorinobu Sakaguchi that was done on January 1 of this year. A happy new year. Fantasian, the game we have been developing over the last 3 years, is almost complete and is scheduled to be released on Apple Arcade this year. The game is an RPG that takes players through a unique world handcrafted dioramas. Music by Nobuo Uematsu.
obviously,
I would be ecstatic. I would be interested for that if it didn't launch as an Apple Arcade exclusive.
Oops.
that's the thing that
Look, I have nothing really against it, but it's one of those situations where having exclusive for it feels more like we're taking away stuff from a multiplayer release rather than genuinely having effort for having exclusives.
it
And
boils.
they have to cut corners as
it-
well.
it boils
Just look at
bad-
Shantae.
It boils. Go ahead.
What? It's bad enough when a mobile game gets included because, then if a mobile game is included at the start of development, more often than not, then that means that companies are going to dumb down the games even on their console ports just so that it can suffice for a mobile interface. When something is made exclusive to mobile, though, that's often a good soldier lost to the war. Like, goddamn.
Well, anyway, we're making progress because now we're officially back on Earth and we're in Mexico.
Yes, you could tell.
Hold up.
That's the thing too. It boils down to this too. Sakaguchi's name alone doesn't carry the same way that it once did at this point. Remember, the reason he was the reason he was able to make that initial deal with Microsoft in the first was because of his name and prestige alone. But after the failures,
No.
But after the failures of Blue Dragon Lost Odyssey and Last Story also didn't sell well either. At this point, we're never gonna see Sakaguchi make another home console RPG ever again. Too, I think at this point, it's just,
I know that.
I wouldn't count him out entirely.
At least for the time being, Jova. But I know that. But I honestly didn't knew that he was still making an actual game in the immediate future. Sure, again, still, Apple Arcade exclusive, might be iffy, but at least he's doing something.
that's the thing too. Ever since Last Story failed, sales-wise, I mean,
Because it was a late Wii game.
Mistwalk.
No, okay.
Well,
It was
it was 20.
also Yosemite Sam poster cute.
Okay,
but,
okay. The real reason that game didn't do still was because, well, the company's rep wasn't the best, thanks to Blue Dragon.
It's not that. It's not just that, Jova. If you don't remember, Last Story was part. Actually, I don't remember if it was
Operation Rainfall.
Operation Rainfall. You know, part of porting those 3 games in America along with Pandora's Tower and Xenoblade. So there was also the iffy part where Nintendo at first was not willing to localize it. Why was there another Taz? Why was there another Taz in the window?
There was an extra life.
That was an extra life icon too.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a fake crash situation. Also, La Cantina. But it was also probably because of that last story. And out of a bunch of the 3 titles, only Xenoblade was the one that managed to, gather enough of a cult following to become a more mainstay and allow Monolith to, gain a more reputation.
Not just
I don't even know what happened to Pandora's Tower. Like, I know that it got eventually localized, but I don't know who developer where. I only know that Tetsuya Nomura did the artwork for something, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the thing. Like I said, after Last Story failed. Mistwalker they even said this themselves, that they changed their efforts to focus on mobile gaming because mobile gaming was at the rise at the time. So
the first Terra Wars from Report actually was mildly successful as a gacha, so there was that, but it seems that it lost steam and the attempts to revive it or making a sequel to it were not really great. Well, I can tell you the only minor experience that I have was the mini collab event that crossed over in Final Fantasy 15, and it wasn't really that. It was actually a fun experience, so I don't know what to tell.
That's the thing too. His last major appearance was in in terms of mainstream gaming audiences stuff, was in Final Fantasy 15 Uncovered. Really, remember? So that was like his last big major appearance amongst the mainstream gaming crowd. So it was.
He also said that Final Fantasy 9 was the game that he wanted the series to go.
Oh no! Both Sakaguchi and Wamatsu have already said plenty of times that 9 is their favorite. That's not really news.
But it doesn't have Lightning, the best protagonist of them all, Pedro.
Please stop.
Yeah, but that's
to his credit. That was Square's way of thinking back in the day.
That's more so. Not to mention
the director's way of thinking, because it was his waifu.
Well,
Lightning was kind of being pushed on all fronts here and there, to the point where some people were thinking that she was going to be in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Not just that, Trevor.
I'm telling you right now,
go on, Pedro.
Wait, let me just say this. If Kingdom Hearts 3 came out last gen, 7th gen, Lightning would have been in it.
Most definitely.
That pretty much.
I wager yes, Drova. The only reason why we did not get Noctis in Kingdom Hearts 3 was clearly because of Nomura's bias towards it.
Honestly, I think the main reason was just because they didn't seem to really care about including Final Fantasy characters
I don't know.
With that game.
I don't know, Jova. Lightning is in the 1 and World of Final Fantasy, which were Nomura productions, and she's fine there. So.
Well, okay.
That's more of an obligation than anything, Pedro.
Yeah, of course she was going to be in Dissidia.
I guess. No, but that's just. But that's the thing to remember. Toriyama is Kitaze's pupil, not Sakaguchi's. Sakaguchi never actually. Kitaze was Sakaguchi's pupil, and that was probably his first big bad decision. The fact that he chose his pupil poorly. So.
Okay. Maybe Kitaze was better back in the day. He just.
I don't know, Joe, but I don't know, Joe, but like we ourselves have been talking about recently, the first time Sakaguchi left him entirely on his own with full creative control. We all saw what happened. So
even so, the other I can tell you this, Joe, but the other game that Kitaze strongly worked on, 5, before 8 was considered among the fan base of the weakest link of a bunch. But to give credit to where it's due, or to play devil's advocate, depending on the case, Kitaze is also the responsible for creating some of the more recent elements that are carried to this day, like making some characters, enemies, and bosses to be much more recurring through the entire franchise. Oh.
And now we have a boss battle inspired by that short where Bugs Bunny faces off against this bull. There you go.
Cool.
So go ahead and finish your point too.
No. So basically, like, there is, like, for all its faults, Kitase managed to did some things right. The problem is that, the negatives are much more evident and, overtaking of the stuff.
It's mostly
that he did.
it's mostly because okay, hold on. Excuse me. It's mostly because he just can't help himself. It really is like he lacks restraint when it comes to both him and Toriyama. I guess they're perfect for each. I guess in this case, the pupil Kitase chose perfectly follows his master's teachings clearly.
Honestly, it's really hard for me to gauge which I think is the more not as productive because okay, look.
Oh, don't get me wrong, Joe. But before you say anything, Toriyama's still worse, probably.
We're talking about Akira Toriyama, correct?
No,
Motomo Toriyama, aka Akira Toriyama's not as talented cousin. Let's put it this. Not really, but I'm just making a joke. The point is, Toriyama is most likely the worst of the two, Joe. But don't worry, I will still give Kitase that. Don't worry.
I was actually going to raise a bit of a theory that Toriyama might be the better of the two, if only because Toriyama, I feel, has been more productive and has garnered stuff that people did legit like Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings, which a lot of people can... Yeah, and Mobius. Whereas Kitase, well, okay, he's technically been in charge of projects that have worked like Final Fantasy VII, but can we really credit him as the main reason that it worked out?
Well, here's the thing, Joe. Two things. Yeah, like you yourself said, that's because after 10, which was the last game he directed, at least to some extent, he retired from directing to just become the series producer, aka he's the Izuka of the Final Fantasy series. He's the one in charge, supposedly doing quality control, supposedly, but much like Izuka, his work is questionable.
Izuka gets way too much of a bad rap from people blaming him for stuff that really isn't on him, like Sonic Forces.
True,
he didn't have any real control over that. Like,
I will give you that. Yes.
Also, one thing we have to remember: Izuka's in charge of Sega of America. Not Sega of Japan, who are the ones working on the
your
main
Sonic
games.
division, just to be clear, not the head of Sega.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But that's the thing. After 10, Kitase kind of became the series producer, Jova. So supposedly, even though he's no longer you can argue, well, he's not as productive. Well, that's because he just became the series producer. He's no longer directing per se. But that's the thing. His job supposedly is to make sure the games are good. And clearly he's not really doing a good job when it comes to his stuff. Don't get me wrong, the 7 remake was great, but we now know there was him who had the brilliant idea of quote-unquote subverting our expectations with that ending.
Yeah, how many beat points does this bull have? There we go.
Well, Teo, to be fair, it's a bull. They're very resilient animals.
So now a plane drops us off at the Castle Dejimon, which means... Yeah.
Is this based on that short that Bugs Bunny has against that vampire guy?
Not the vampire guy. No, it's actually surprisingly, Teo, the boss of this haunted castle is the green-headed scientist in Gossamer. So interesting.
Oh.
I gotta say, Acme are the best delivery group in the history.
But it was Amazon before it was cool.
They could chuck everything around and all their items would still be in one piece.
And I just realized
Jeff Bezos feels he's original.
I just realized that if Amazon started inventing actual physical objects, they will become the real life Acme, and I don't know what to think about it.
Oh god!
Anyway,
and now that's probably what's gonna happen.
Anyway, Jova, this level has a much more simpler explanation. The developers really wanted a haunted castle level. And there you go.
Fair enough. Of course. I mean, and you know what? Looney Tunes has plenty of those.
Sure.
Like Tio said, obviously the boss of this is going to be Gossamer.
This is actually one of those cases where, because Gossamer is supposed to be taking place in a lab, so I feel like Witch Hazel would have been a much better pick for a boss battle in this.
Well, okay. To be fair,
Witch Hazel.
Hold on. Dead says, hold on. Let me finish. Gossamer's shorts actually have taken place in a castle. The lab just happens to be in the castle.
I guess. Well, hold on. What's the name of? Isn't her name Witch Hazel? Or maybe
In my country, it is, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's Witch Hazel.
It's Witch Hazel, Deji.
No, isn't that a Disney character?
No, actually. It's
No.
actually more antagonistic for a video game comparison. It's much more antagonistic and several boss fight in Bugs Bunny Lost in Time, the medieval setting.
That being said, this level is probably the hardest one in terms of pure platforming, because there's going to be a lot of platforming in this level, and it's that very tight type of platforming. So keep your.
Also, I guess one bit of mercy that the game has that I noticed from levels from before is the fact that spikes, unlike in Mega Man, do not insta-kill you, so there's that.
No. That was mostly an NES thing too. By the time we got the 16-bit generation, developers fortunately realized that maybe we shouldn't, be so unforgiving.
But also, I noticed that at this point, the Escape from Mars title has kind of lost most of its meanings. I thought that.
My guess is still they
Sorry,
couldn't really come up with a name that was all encompassing. So fuck it, nobody's gonna care. It's
I suppose. Well, I was able to say one thing that happened in the previous set of levels that I didn't mention.
Oh, there she
we
is.
were talking about something else. Is the fact that the previous level was very fan servicey in terms of of referencing. This one seems to be too, but at least starting with that one, we had there were references to pretty much a lot of Looney Tunes history. So again, interesting that they decided to concentrate that in most of those specific type of levels.
That's
Also,
the
hey,
primary.
Witch Hazel.
That's what makes the first game so disappointing in retrospect, even more. The fact that they have so much, they have literally decades of shorts that they can draw inspiration from. But no, let's have Jungle Land, Desert Land.
Lives.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that you have more experience with the actual Tasmania cartoon. Like, did the set of supporting characters would have been compelling enough to potentially be present in a video game such as these?
Maybe.
Would
Well,
you
I
say
mean-
that?
This is a Taz game. Maybe having one or two from the show wouldn't hurt.
I was
Again, like
actually
I can
going-
mention
Well, the first
this-
game technically did have characters from the show, Teo.
Only for the intro. I'm talking about in a sense of showing up in the stage, doing stuff like giving you
Yeah,
items
true.
and such.
Okay.
Well, but
Like-
we did too. We had the first boss was the two platypus guys. Then the kid with the bow was also one of the bosses.
Sure, I guess. But again, like I think I mentioned, I watched the show when I was a kid, and I found it so uninspiring anyway. But I think detaching from that for this kind of game is actually for the better. So.
Oh yeah, no, it's mostly the thing about Tasmania is that it was an experimental part of Tom Ruger, aka the guy in charge of Animaniacs, Freakazoid, and Tiny Toons, all that stuff. It was more of an experiment where compared to the other cartoons they were making, which were much more slapstick based. Taz was kind of they were trying to do something that would be.
God, it's Mega Man.
Yep.
They were trying to do something more akin to. They're trying to do something a bit more the opposite of what you'd expect from Taz, as in, okay, make the humor a lot more verbal, in the sense that the characters are always talking and always pointing out things. So the humor was much more verbal. So it was definitely the kind of humor that works a lot better when you're older and you can properly understand what they're trying to get across, I will argue. So it definitely was. That's probably one of the main reasons why it's more appreciated by nostalgic adults rather than the kids at the time, most likely. But that's a topic for another day. All right, tune in next time where we'll try to find out a way out of this castle, I guess.
A way out, starring Taz. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.